finally I came across this new program at the time, and I remember the flyer was like some really low poly CG elf, and they were like, "Oh, we got this new thing where there's this program called Maya, and you can make characters." And I was like, "Okay," I'm like, "That's cool." Like, and they're like, like video games. So I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay, all right." And then the first year of that was like Photoshop and Illustrator and Flash, and I was like, "What's the characters like?" But finally getting through all that, playing with Maya for the first time, and having this like, it's like, it's like sculpting with clay, but like without the mess, and it was really fascinating just seeing 3D represented in the screen, and someone who grew up with a lot of consumption of video games and cartoons and movies and whatnot, and Toy Story was super cool and all that. I was like, yeah, this is I think this is it. So I caught the bug, and that was where I stayed for forever. And but not many other films have shaken every emotion out of me like a Miyazaki film. So I don't know, like if you watch anything like Howl's Moving Castle or Princess Mononoke, and you don't shed a single tear, are you really human? It's kind of funny to take real life lessons from movies like that, but it really shows you how movies like that can show you how to deal with your emotions, and how to deal with such heavy emotional issues. And that film really stuck with me. And to see just anything like imagery like in a Miyazaki film, you can't get more fantastical and grandiose than seeing like the castle from Howl's Moving Castle in a gigantic landscape, and I don't know, you could pick literally any of those movies, and I can tell you how somehow it reached my core and changed my sense of self.
So I think confidence is more like, I feel like that's the first line, if you can or cannot do it. But I would say bare minimum, like just be confident as who you are as a human being. And then about your work, it's more about communication. So I do think at the end of the day, communication skill is way more important than your skills. Your skills in terms of animation or any skills that's knowledge based, you can always learn. And I didn't know anything about mocap. Literally, I was like trying to figure out TCP/IP, all of that stuff. I can learn on the job. I can ask people for help. I can find a mentor. But communication, it takes practice, and you need to be motivated and brave enough to do it to start. Up until now, I've done so many panels and presentations, but I also have to acknowledge that I also started by not having any experience and freaking out, making notes on my notebook for every single question I have to ask, So we all started off somewhere, and I think that's one thing I have to remind myself constantly.
I want everybody to know, even like especially young people, like it's okay. It's okay to suffer through it's okay to have a hard time. It's okay to be stressed out. It's okay if you're struggling right now. It's okay if you don't have work right now, right? Like things will get better. I look at the hardship as sort of like not a blessing, but I embrace it.
My question to you, Brittany, is like, you've essentially been freelance like since you graduated. So it's like, how did you even like, what basis did you have to like set your rate or like kind of navigate that in that way, just straight out of school? Because I couldn't imagine,
and especially like, in the work from home environment like that.
Oh, yeah. I was lucky because I had a teacher at SVA called Todd Allen Pellick. Hey Todd. And he was very real with me because I always talked with him, and like I would always come like struggling to class, and he'd see me. When I first got reached out for freelance, I was like, I don't even know what to say. He said, do 350. Mm-hmm. But then I realized like I am literally fresh out of school, and I want to work for a really long time. And so when they reached out back to me, they were like, okay, we could definitely do this internship, but they did lower my rate just so that they could have me fully integrate into their pipeline. So I went from 350 down to 225. And I was like, all right, you know what? I got a job, I got money, let's do it. And then after my internship period ended, after 3 months, I went back up to 300 because I was like, all right, now I know your pipeline, I understand how to work with people. I didn't feel comfortable enough for 350 yet. That sounded so scary. And I say that like as I'm not from necessarily like a big house and like I got family that's like working these really big name jobs. I come from very humble beginnings. Asking for something so big when like minimum wage in New York State is $15 an hour, I was like, I'll just do double that because I don't think I'm worthy of going beyond that just yet. And so I've been working at that rate for this past year until I talked to Jamil, and Jamil was like, bro, put your rate up higher, go back to 350. So now when I'm like, pitching myself to people, I'm saying 350, and someone else told me you should go to 400 now because you have more, like you have the work ethic and the work to show that you can make that. So it's been a journey.
I've taken off bookings where they emailed me at 5-6 p.m. Friday.
Yeah.
We need somebody to start tomorrow. You're like, man, I can't turn down work, and
Well, those are those jobs that like you take them and you're like, I knew it. Every sign was there.
I knew it.
Every sign was there. I shouldn't have taken it, and I took it.
Have the rest of you had the experience where you get hit up for a booking, you tell them rate, you don't get the booking, and then the job, like I guess the job goes along, right? And then like weeks later, that same company hits you up again, and then you get the booking, like a booking. Like you're saying, you're being brought on to basically, like I've had that experience where I've gotten booked or didn't get booked, and because I was told basically my rate was too high, and then gotten booked at the end of it for the same job.
Fix it.
Different ways that we can kind of tune in to the energies of the universe is the way that he kind of described it, is that ideas are sometimes like unexpected thoughts that come back, old memories that become seeds, and then those seeds are then, you know, small pieces that lead to ideas, and those ideas are actually signals traveling through space and time. They're tiny whispers, and to hear those whispers, an artist has to be quiet. Aristotle, the quote is, "Art completes what nature can't." And I just thought it was really nice that, you know, we have all these artists around, musicians, you know, you and I are artists, and we have these things that we see and we experience that, you know, obviously nature can't come up and write music, like wind can't do that, but humans can. You know, we have this thing within us that adds to the nature of who we are as human beings. So just a nice quote that I felt like, I was like, oh, that's kind of nice that us as artists, we are the completers of some of these things.
I have found so much healing, and like if there is something that like sparks any kind of like, ooh, what is that? Because the opposite is like having no hope, I say like fucking go for it. Like chase that thing down. If it's not related to like what you do professionally, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just let it go. Like I feel like these things will come back. They will always add to it. And so we were going back and forth where she was like, well, I'm interested in this, I'm interested in that, but I really feel like I should be learning Houdini. I really feel like, you know, and when I was on my sabbatical, I was like, I don't want to go near a computer. Like, hell no. When I took time off, I didn't want to go near a computer, and I took like singing lessons, I started like paddleboarding and all this stuff. And there was a deep fear. I think I told you all this, that I was like, what if I don't want to get started?
This conversation, this topic of purpose is so important because a lot of artists nowadays, in my observation, have really lost sight of it, you know, with the modern day distractions tugging at your creative, what did you call it? The creative divinity, your divine inspiration. You know, you've got all these things pulling you away from it consistently, and it gets worse and worse the further along you go without allowing yourself to tap back into that. And I think that artists nowadays, professionals who have been able to create a living for themselves working as graphic designers or visual effects artists or painters or fashion designers, anything like that, we fall into this comfort bubble with our jobs. you know? And a lot of times there's no need to really dip into that divine inspiration for work. You know, it's very much just notes and what the client is looking for, and just bringing out that vision in a very technical, almost like objectively pleasing way. And so what I'm seeing now is with a lot of creatives in situations where now that profession has been taken away from them, that livelihood is gone, whether it be as a freelance artist with less and less work coming, or if you've been working as a graphic designer or visual effects professional for a company for so long, and now all of a sudden layoffs happen and you're without that. In essence, now it's like, okay, well, I've almost lulled myself to sleep about what it really means to be an artist. That decision I made however many years it was ago to be an artist, I knew then, or at least I should have known then, that it's not about being complacent and things being easy, like you pointed out in the 1400s, right? Yeah. They were constantly grinding. They didn't get much. It's always been like that. You know what I mean? But the impact that you can have on other people and the way that you can share your creativity is the talent that only artists have. And so you think about that purpose, like, what am I doing this for? Like, what am I actually doing this for?
When you do you, like, if you say the shit you want to say, you do you put out the work you want to put out, like, people, like, you build it, they come kind of thing. Amazing people have hit me up to, like, collab, do stuff, and, like, just seeing people's reactions to it, like, they're like, this is amazing. It's also not client work. It's like people like, but it's like people are actually like, oh, you did something. Like, it's cool. It felt really nice. Yeah. Again, it's not even like a narrative. They're based off the 7 deadly sins, but it's meant to, like, beautify it and not nothing negative, nothing, like, ugly. It's meant to, like, be the beautiful side of these things that are considered negative, which is just like another thread of this, like, this kind of like mixing of like two opposites of like old and new, contemporary and Renaissance, like all that stuff. So, like, I think it just kind of resonates. Having done this now and experiencing it, I wish I could really truly download you on the feeling, but I will say, like, do your thing, because it's very rewarding. It feels really good. It's hard, but it's good.
I try to be vocally optimistic and encouraging, because all you can control is yourself, right? And so I do follow, like, my own passions, and I pursue them fully because they bring me joy. And then that ends up becoming contagious, and eventually it leads to something. And I know a lot of people are struggling right now. In addition to the 15 years when I was working in the industry and doing music and running festivals and doing all the shit, I spent for 2.5 of those years, I was also dealing with cancer, and basically had to do a life reset after that. And then, COVID hit hard, and had to do a life reset after that. And the strikes, hit hard, not as hard as others, but still hit hard, and I've had to do a big pivot after that. And so a lot of the stuff I'm spouting, it's not like from a mountaintop, it's because I've lived through it, and I know that the only way forward is to keep going, right? Like, I can't give up, like, especially after all that stuff. Like, am I going to throw in the towel now? I just know sometimes, like, especially if you're in the dumps and there's, like, heavy clouds over you, and you hear someone being like, just do your passions and follow your shit, and if you like music, make music. And it can easily be like, well, screw that guy, just in case one person hears this. Like, it's like, I've been through it all and still done it. And I think doing that and getting through it then puts everything else in perspective, because it's like, well, okay, I made it through that. Like, who cares, right? Like, everything else gets even like more right size, which I feel like gives me more perspective, which then helps me do the stuff I love even more. And then, it like spins itself like out, which is awesome.
Here's something true. One day you'll be dead. Here's something false. You'll only live once. So the idea is that, like, it takes us, I've heard 10 as well, but it takes like 7 years to master something. So if you think about it that way, and you live to like 88, there's 11 opportunities for you to be great at something. There's 11 different lifetimes. And I think that, like, makes so much sense to me, but it's also really exciting. It's like, that means I have an opportunity to, like, try out so many things, as
Mhm.
opposed to being like, I have to be good at this one thing, but like, what if I change my mind? Or like, what if something changes, which something will change. Like,
Mhm.
it's so freeing to know, like, oh, actually I can and should pivot frequently. And I think what has happened to us is that we outgrew that part, and like it needed to die.
I have like an idea of there could be like a skateboarder, so and like we're following the skateboarder. We could present some good like dynamic shots.
Yeah.
And then from there, like I guess I was kind of inspired by like The Last Black Man in San Francisco.
Mhm.
Like the opening scene. I can send it. Like I feel like it's a pretty good representation of maybe what I was thinking. My vibe is just like when you're like walking around the city, like specifically like I think about like Chinatown, and I like just look around and see everyone and like see like different kinds of people or different kinds of moments, like community, but then there's also just people traveling, like the very like dissonant aspects of New York City, like very fast-paced lifestyles, but also at the same time like the communities. Kind of like cutting between maybe slow-mo moments, like the ones in The Last Black Man in San Francisco, and then like kind of faster paced like cuts.
And then as far as like that street vibe, feeling like the diversity and the amount of people, the vibe of the people, that could kind of be told through like audio and stuff, I feel, you know.
Okay, yeah, this week was a bit like crazy, or like lots of ups and downs. But yeah, the hair, I was like spending like a whole day just basically going through all the settings trying to fix it. And I think I realized like I like changed the like binding from skinning to rigid, and now it's just like stayed in place. And I was like, it would be nice to have her hair like move a little, but like at this point I don't care. Like it was too much. Just to tie it together, like her turning and smiling, or like looking towards what it'll cut to, like those 4 shots. And then I was like hoping to just do one shot where like she does a trick or something, just to like break up the slower shots. The one last thing I need to do is like add that shot in.
Welcome everybody to the very first Creative Forum live conversation hosted by LightworQ. Sorry about the technical difficulties that we had. We're having some issues, but this is live. This is our very first time doing this. But we're still excited to be here. We've got a great conversation geared up today. My name is Jamil Primus. I've got 10 years experience as a lighting artist in the visual effects industry. I've worked on films, TV, but I spent the majority of my career working in advertising in New York City. And I've been through it all, the whole gamut of Burnout, anxiety, asking myself if my work has any value, if I'm valued. And I went a long time without checking in on my personal creative energy, and I suffered for a while. Creative energy, of course, being all of the things that we give our clients that we don't get back when we get our paycheck. I'm talking about our time, our energy, our emotion, our experiences, all of our relationships. This is really depleting when you don't check in on yourself, you know? And so that's kind of what this conversation is about today. And that's what LightworQ was founded on. So just a brief introduction about LightworQ before we get started. We're a social enterprise with the goal of supporting artists in replenishing that creative energy. And one of the ways that we do this is through facilitating conversations like the one that we're getting ready to have today. So this conversation about purpose, you know, just what does it mean? And where do I stand as a creative professional in this industry? There's a lot of angst in this industry lately about work and people's livelihoods and people's passions about the art that they do. And I can't wait to dive into this topic because we've got a very interesting format for this forum today. Like I said, the very first time that we're doing this. So bear with us. We're gonna work this out for sure, but here's how this is gonna work. So the audience is going to drive the conversation today. Everyone who's in the audience right now can comment in the chat, and we encourage you to do so. So don't hold back. If you want to write a paragraph, write a paragraph. If you want to chat amongst yourselves, that's fine. We're monitoring the comments and we're going to see all of them. And what we're going to do is we're going to share your comments on screen for everyone to see if we think that it stands out or if we think that it's kind of in line with the sentiments of the rest of the chat. And we have an amazing panel here today to provide their insights on the thoughts that you share. And so that's kind of how the conversation is going to go. I'm going to bring our panelists out in just a bit. One thing to mention, if you're viewing this on LinkedIn right now, I think we had some issues with LinkedIn streaming. So everyone in here is joining directly through our Riverside link right now. So that means that if you have the option to call in, you should have that option to call in. That'll be available to you if you like. You can have your camera on if you want to or not. All that means is that we're going to be able to pull you up on stage with us, with the rest of the panel, to share your thoughts, ask a question, share your sentiments on things. And we're going to open that up to you in about 20, 30 minutes or so after the panelists come on, get settled, and introduce themselves. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking. I want to just dive straight into this because we're a little bit behind, but here's our panels. All right, guys. Is everybody on? Are we good? Cool.
Yeah, it's all good.
All right. I'm gonna hand it over to you guys, just to introduce yourselves, and maybe we can put a prompt up on screen just to kind of get things started. See what everyone in the audience has to say too.
Cool. I'll go first. Can you hear me, Jamil?
Yep, can you just fine.
Cool. All right. Hey, I'm Taylor Armstrong. I've been in the animation VFX industry for a combined 18 plus years. I went to school, UMass Lowell, shout out Massachusetts. I did 1 year in graphic design for a transfer to SVA to do traditional animation. I was part of a really rad class there. I went to school with Rebecca Sugar, Greg Jagelnitzer, Tyler Heckman, Drake Armstrong, a bunch of people that have done really cool stuff. And got my first job, technically in animation, working in the animation supply cage at SVA, handing out light discs, helping people with VCRs back in the day, and lunch boxes and pencil tests and all that good stuff. and then became a teacher's assistant for 2 years, which was rad, and then got my first proper job in animation doing digital ink and paint for Bill Plimpton. I worked with him in New York for a few years, which then opened other doors to work with. If any of y'all are in New York, like kind of the mainstays of New York in independent animation, like Andy London, Signa Bauman, John Dilworth, Pez, people like that. So that was rad. And that was like 18 years ago. And since then, I've gone from New York to Chicago to San Diego to LA to Atlanta to LA. Now I'm back in Atlanta. For a while there, I wasn't really anywhere longer than a year and a half. And following the passion, the purpose, floating all around the country. I've worked in basically every format, every genre possible, advertising, large scale nature films and IMAX, episodic features, music videos, social, 9x16s, 16x9s, you name it. I spent a few years as a head of VFX and finishing for an editorial house, running campaigns for like Planet Fitness, Budweiser, Walgreens. That's like, advertising side, and then episodic and feature films, Walking Dead, superhero shows, and lots of music videos and yada, 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 you name it. And also toured professionally as a musician for 2 or 3 years around the world. I started my own international animation festival called Animation Torrent out of Chicago. That led to getting a job for 3 years as the festival manager for Animation Block Party, which is one of the biggest animation festivals in the country. That led to work with CartoonBrew.com, and also trained to be a professional wrestler, also trained in acting and improv. I'm a ham for the camera, and I've written for TV, I've directed, I've edited, I've shot, produced, I've done it all. I love it. I can't stop. Even when there's no work coming in, I can't stop. I'm always doing something. And so this topic, this idea resonates very much with me because I've worn lots of hats, started over in lots of cities, made lots of new friends, and have just continued to just follow like the yes and branching vibe that like my spirit kind of leads me in creative wise. So I'm excited to hear from the rest of y'all. Appreciate somebody in the chat shouted out my t-shirt. Always trying to have fun, not take myself too seriously. And that's that. So I believe Andrea is next.
Yes, hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Rosado. I'm super excited to be here. This is my first time being a panelist in LightworQ. I'm a junior artist specializing in compositing, lighting, look development. I'm originally from Puerto Rico and started this journey in visual effects and in the States a couple years ago when I joined the Savannah College of Art and Design, and recently graduated last June with a BFA in visual effects, and had the wonderful opportunity of starting early in my career, interning with Assembly VFX, former Assembly VFX, and Hornet as well. And I've been fortunate enough that even in uncertain times, I've been able to do some freelance work and meeting amazing people like the panelists here and a lot of people that I know in the chat as well that are joining today. And I'm super grateful because other than like my career that is early on in the industry, I'm very, very, very passionate about storytelling, which started early on when I fell in love with movies, just watching films, reading books, watching shows. And that drive to tell the stories and connect with people is really what makes me like be here today and embrace my passions for not just visual effects, but also painting, drawing. I'm really passionate about writing. And actually, writing that gave me the opportunity of meeting Jamil and being here because back in SCAD, I had the opportunity of being a journalist. And I remember interviewing Jamil and learning about the wonderful work he and the community does here in LightworQ, allowing us to connect and just not just be artists, but also be human. Because this topic of purpose, it's big. We're not just artists grinding all the time and hitting on notes. It's just an opportunity I appreciate that opportunity to open up and engage in conversation. So I'm really, really honored to not just have met this opportunity at SCAD, but also now being here and talking with everybody and sharing a little bit about myself. So thank you. And now it's Scott's turn, I believe. Yeah.
Hey everyone, my name's Scott Denton. I've been working in the industry now from like I guess around 2003, really, but like started in CG around I guess 1999, really. Uh, I've was full time for 2 years when I first moved here at a small company called Shiloh, and after that I went freelance for about 14 years, and then I've worked at Microsoft, Mill, like I mean I could keep listing companies that I've freelanced for over those years. And then the last couple of years, I've worked on film and television over in London, and I'm now back in New York, just working freelance and trying to stay motivated, doing personal work and trying to bring some community back to New York since I've been back here. And so excited to be part of this chat. And I guess that's me for now. I can head it over to Caitlin.
Thank you. It's great to hear everyone's backgrounds, and I'm really excited to see everyone in the chat. My name is Caitlin Yu. I'm a freelance 3D animator. I've been freelancing for about 2.5 years, and I've worked at like Framestore, Hornet, Hi-Fi 3D, Jabimation, Free Range VFX, a lot of studios, a lot of small studios, with clients like Kroger, McDonald's, Geico, Cricket, etc., etc. So mostly doing commercials, but always excited and interested to do basically a little bit of everything. Most recently, trying to do more camera animation and previs, and just improve always. I went to the School of Visual Arts from 2018 to 2022, so graduated and then just started freelancing. And I really feel like one of my favorite things about working in this industry has been the community and just been like connections with other people. I really feel like I owe my career to so many people who have just been so kind and have believed in me and then supported me and encouraged me. So that's definitely one of my favorite parts. And I'm excited to talk about purpose.
Thank you guys. I mean, yeah, like I said, we're gonna hold off for just a little bit before we open up the call-in feature to anybody who wants to call in. I think for now, we might as well kind of start off with just the general question. Is like, what does purpose mean to you? I think it's a very subjective thing. I think you could kind of approach it from a lot of angles, but I'm curious to just kind of get a high level overview of what that question means to you guys initially, and then of course everyone in the chat too. Um, what do you think? What does purpose mean to you um, as creative professionals in this industry?
Anybody want to run with it? I hope I don't have to now that I'm talking.
I'll jump in. I'll jump in. So I think just creative wise, I mean, because okay, I can't stop making stuff. I've always been this way. I was like painting rocks and selling them when I was like 7 years old. So for me, it just bleeds so much into like who I am, and so I also think just kind of objectively, just for myself. I'll only speak for myself, but I think I think we all have gifts, and I think everyone's gifts are different. Like I could never be an electrician. Like I don't care about it. I couldn't make it work. But there's probably fucking incredible electricians out there that care about it and do a great job. So we all have different gifts, and I think that the main purpose is to be able to then just use that gift and help people. And so for me, that translates to like, regardless of whether I'm animating or on-set supervising or I don't know, on some sort of kickoff call, or just looking at someone's like drawing or whatever. I just think in that moment, even just taking drawing or any of that out of it, like just what can I genuinely offer in a scenario, and I think people can get in their heads because it's gonna be like, well, I don't know. I always butcher this quote, but there's this quote from a book that was basically saying that like what's obvious to you, like you could write it off because like, oh, that's obvious, but it's obvious to you and all like to you, and you are special and unique, and your view is, unique. And so, what might be obvious and come easy to me, like if I like suffocate that feeling, I'm like robbing myself and whoever is asking me or around me like the opportunity to like know me and know like my unique take versus trying to like come up with like the best idea or like fight my instincts and answer a different way. And so like for me, regardless of what I'm doing, my purpose is to bring my truest self to every opportunity I can. And that has served me regardless of whatever industry, regardless of, like last year when the industry was super dead, I was like literally scooping snow cones. And I don't know, how did I best serve that? I was like 36-year-old dude. I was dependable, cleaned up after the place. I was friendly, conversational, brought a good vibe. I tasted all the flavors. I brought, and I don't know, how can I make the best of every opportunity? And that is my purpose day to day, whether I'm in line at the grocery store or chatting with all you fine folks. I'll put the mic down now. Whoever wants to step in, go for it.
Yeah, echoing on what Taylor was saying, I think that yeah, it's purpose is pretty much the magic of the little things. Like I remember growing up, I would see my purpose as an artist as like, yeah, I need to do great art to like share a great message with the world, but it always comes to the question of, oh, when are you not working, or when are you not like creating art, or are you still fulfilling your purpose? And still think that yeah, of course you're fulfilling your purpose, because again, it's serving others by shining, like sharing that light that it's within you. So knowing yourself, knowing your value and your gifts, like Taylor mentioned, like knowing your gifts and your strength, because this world needs someone like you, someone like myself. Just putting those gifts from that you were born with to serve other people and do it selflessly. Just that's like the gift for others. I think that's the main clue of the main key of what purpose is. It's not about you yourself and something driven by ego and just making art for yourself. It's also sharing something to the world. It's sharing. I like to say that my art is like a reflection of what is within me. So then somebody that sees it, I can be like a vessel for someone that needs to see that beauty. So exactly like the quote, the magic cannot leave you when it is in you. So that's purpose, like just sharing that magic with the world.
That's amazing, what both of you said. Definitely the magic in the little things, like Andrea said. And to go off of what Taylor said, kind of like always just bringing like the best in you to whatever job you have, I think is kind of my idea of purpose. Because growing up, like I think a lot of people would sometimes talk about like what is your purpose in life, and I always thought that was such an interesting like question, or like it's like too big for me. Like it just doesn't make sense to have such a large question. And not to like make it about like religion, but I'm like I grew up like basically not around any religion, so like things that are like really big don't really make sense to me. I only live in like my present tense just with myself. So like when I thought about it, I was like really my purpose in life is just to connect with the people around me, and like what brings me joy in life is like my friends and my family, and like doing things that bring me joy. And so I feel like that's just kind of what I think about it as, like just approaching everything in life with like connecting with other human beings, making the most of day to day. I think, and that's important because maybe sometimes with purpose, people begin to think like my purpose is to become the best artist, the best animator, to make a name for myself, to achieve fame and success. And I think it's just kind of hard when you put that on yourself because there's a lot of other factors that may prevent you from getting there, or it's just hard to keep like such a large goal in mind when you're just doing the day to day. So I think it's important to like really appreciate your daily things, especially in this industry when it's like you don't always get the opportunity to drive the project. You really have to appreciate the process and the day to day, which means appreciating working with other people, like enjoying the community, enjoying even the most mundane tasks, and even though you might hate it a little bit, like some silly stuff that you work on, I just try to remember that like it's still what I've always enjoyed doing. And at the end, there's a product or like a commercial that looks really cute or really beautiful, and I had really a lot of fun working with other people on it. So my I don't know if that makes sense, but basically my purpose is just to really appreciate the day to day, whether it's in this job like my animation tasks, or if I were to do another job, I could really like throw the best of what's in me into that job and appreciate the day to day of that job as well. So it can really apply to any job.
Microphone's not working. There we go. She's pulling that start. Uh, yeah, like I think listening to you guys speak about it seems like it's a lot of purpose for all of us. Like in here, it comes down to community a lot, and I think in the last couple of years since COVID and other things like that, we've lost a little bit of that community in person. And like for me, particularly, I think that's always kind of been where my purpose is, and um, and I feel like a lot of what I speak on when I speak on things is finding that connection to other people, uh, and having purpose in the way that you help mentor people coming into the industry, how you um, are within your job on a daily basis. Uh, Also, I found that like I need to separate myself from my purpose of work sometimes and find more purpose in just my actual, like, I feel like, we've all been in this down times of like not having work, right? And I think when we're alone and we're doing that, we start like, and we feel like we don't have purpose anymore, and that can kind of darken our minds to like I'm not good. I'm not doing this right. I'm not doing that right. And what we need to remember a lot of these times in these situations is that, I mean, not that it's a good thing, but like other people are also going through this, whether it be our industry or elsewhere. And I think for me, and I think for some of you, like it's being a voice for others, uh, and finding purpose in that. I don't know if that's a good answer, but that's kind of like what I think of when I think of it is just everybody.
Yeah, a couple. I see a couple cool things showing up in the chat. I want to share this on
Aaron had a question
screen.
too.
Yeah, I saw this one thing pointed to Caitlin from Howard. I'll pull up on the screen. Um, just about like breaking that concept down, how do we begin to answer that question into this like daily action, because I think what's interesting about it is like you think about what is my purpose, but you also kind of think about what answering that question can do for you. I feel like when you don't have not I don't want to say you don't have a purpose, but when you don't have a conscious kind of like thinking of what your purpose is and you're not actively trying to find it, that's when you can find yourself drifting from day to day without really feeling like you're making any progress on anything, regardless of what it is that you're doing.
Yeah,
That's at
that's
least kind of how I think about it.
like when you talk about it like that, it makes me think of like practice, like purpose as almost kind of the same thing, right? Like, like if like bigger, wide thing is purpose, but like if you want to do things and you want to like making daily practice, like regardless of like you really want to do it or right, like finding that thing that if you love it enough and you can practice it, then like it helps you find other purpose in other things too. Like, yeah,
Yeah, I was thinking, I think for me, what I always think about, because it is really hard sometimes when you're doing like different jobs and sometimes you're doing the same job and maybe it's just easier to lose sight of why you're doing all this. I always think about like I've always admired how there are these people in the industry who are have been working for so long and are so like have so much expertise and knowledge, and their eye is so honed that they see things I literally can't see about my animation or about just like various aspects of the animation process. I always admire that so much. Like it's like similar to how there are like artisans out there who like all they've been doing for like 50 years is like making shoes, like cobblers or chefs, and they can like for like a cobbler they can like from just feeling the shoe they know how to fix it, or like for a chef just like a smelling the food they know if it's seasoned or not. Like that's something I always kind of hope to achieve, and for me I can be very distracted. I like to do a lot of different things. Like I enjoy a lot of different things, which can be good, but also I can get easily swayed or distracted. I always try to remember that, like for myself, I want to really achieve that, like to achieve that level of expertise to become like an artisan or like a master. So I try to take the day to day like seriously. Like it may not be work that's super inspiring to me, but if I can find a way to like learn something from the process, then it gives me the purpose to really like pay attention and be focused and treat it seriously. And that also means sometimes like always keeping that in mind when I am like choosing bookings, kind of like as a freelancer. Like I am trying to like move along, so if I feel like the project isn't like helping me grow as an artist, then I have to find ways to improve otherwise, like mentorships, or like I can do mentorships on the side to help me get that next booking, which will that will challenge me and make me a better artist.
Yeah, it's like picking things that like challenge you, right? To like bring you forward.
Yeah.
It's like anytime like I have to
Yeah.
model something that I've done before, like try to, I always try to do things differently so that it's fun.
Mhm.
Like even if I've done it before, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll try this time. And like, then that makes it like a game and it makes it fun to do because it's like you're also like, maybe this won't work and I have to go back to A, but doing B and C like gives you like the path to like having another way of doing it. And like, I think that's a fun way for me to find purpose in things.
Yeah, I agree with what you all said. It's definitely important to practice and like even like get out of your comfort zone and try different things while being true to yourself. But other than that, I also find it like very valuable, at least in my journey, to the ability to like slow down and be true to yourself and like reflect. Because I remember like growing up, I was always chasing something, whether that is grades, graduation, a job. There was always like this constant race to like fill my purpose with what I was doing. But it wasn't until I was able to like slow down and just like stop for a moment and really reflect with myself into what was really working and what wasn't. It's really what opened my eyes and my perspective into like something new. So having that space maybe in your day to day to just slow down, even if it's just for a couple of minutes, to reflect on what it is you're doing is making, how is it making you feel, or if it's really being true to your why behind everything. It's really gonna make a difference maybe in the moment. Like in the moment it's not gonna be the best, but gradually as you build that habit of reflecting, of being true to you and like slowing down, it can help to have more clarity, especially in very uncertain times. There can be a lot of noise, especially with everything that's going on in the industry. But I realized that slowing down and being able to quiet that noise to listen to the voice that is within you, that is like what drives your purpose, it really helps to realign and not be like distracted by a lot of things. Just slowing down and practice what really speaks to you. It's what have helped me. So
Yeah, if I can round out real quick, piggyback off what Andrea was just saying. Um, I think it's very easy to there's a very gray wobbly line between like purpose and like ambition and goals and like just like desires. Whereas like my the idea of like my purpose is to be like the best artist, like that's like a goal or that's like an ambition. But like Andrea was saying, like being quiet enough to know how that aligns with your inner compass. It's just as we continue to talk about purpose and stuff, just like remembering, because that's once you start to we start to follow the goal and mission part too much, that's where you can go off path and start to like equate like personal value with the value of my work, or that's what I can bring to the world. That's like all that kind of nonsense. And yeah, just like purpose, like, you know, you could be I can have like a plug that's got 3 prongs in it, and the purpose of that plug is to plug into a 3-prong thing. But if I want it to be something else, that's like the goal and the ambition. So trying to find, you know, navigating that line is just something to be mindful of.
Yeah, that what you said about how it aligns with your inner compass. I see a couple things in the chat that I feel like you could kind of answer with that question. You know, I feel like that inner compass is it's what allows you to know when you've got there, you know, because without it you just keep going more, and I think that if you're not careful, you may not realize that there's nothing to get done. You know, it's all about the process of things, and when you don't have a defined purpose for yourself, then you put yourself in this hamster wheel of chronic success seeking, but you'll never allow yourself to feel successful, like you've actually achieved something, because you don't have that compass to let you know when you've gotten there. um, I see a really good question that came in from Ethan. I'm going to put it up on screen right now, talking about community. Ethan Ethan said he graduated recently and he found a lot of community in school with his classmates and stuff, but I feel like I agree with him in that once you get into your profession, it goes fast, and it's about client work, and faster than you might even like to admit. It just kind of disappears. That sense of like being grounded in something kind of bigger than yourself. It starts to focus more and more on like you said, your ambitions. That's when that line can start to get blurred. What do you guys think about that?
For me, it's like I said something that my ADHD is completely showing up right now. Somebody else. I had something I was gonna say, and then it
Yeah.
like totally went away.
That happens, Scott. That happens. Well, I think I can jump in if you want. Um, yeah, I know that feeling of like having that sense of community is super important. And like, I also recently graduated, and I found myself like looking at the wall that like, yeah, the world obviously it's not like school where you have like all that like that support, constant support all the time, and yeah, it's a big shock. And yeah, it was challenging for me for sure, but you still have the ability to build that community even outside of the work you're doing, or just again, just remind yourself of what it is really that drives you and what it is you like about that sense of community. Like for me, it's just again learning about other people's stories. Since I'm a storyteller, I like connecting and learning from them as well, because that's the beauty of community building. It's just learning, like that willingness to learn and be a better person comes from the community, because they teach you and you get to like also learn and teach from based on your experiences. So always find that opportunity to build community within your work, within everything you're building. And if you don't have that opportunity, it doesn't like it doesn't really, you still have a purpose even if you don't have a community. It's just it's still gonna get better for sure. So
Yeah, to jump off that. Oh, sorry, Taylor. I don't know if you wanted to talk, but
No, it's all good. Go for it.
okay. Yeah, to go off that, Ethan, I do absolutely agree with you that well, at least I think it can be personal things. So each person may find like what their priorities are to be different. And I think that's like an important part of like purpose in your career or just in your life is to find like what your priorities are. So like that can really define what your career will look like. So for example, for you, Ethan, it was like community is so important to you that it's what drives you, and I definitely feel the same way. And like, to be honest, like I feel like part of like the lack of community is what makes me consider like sometimes leaving animation or just other careers, because I think from what I heard in college from my professors, it would be like so much talk about how great it was after studio, like at the studios, they would have such a great community afterwards to go out for drinks and stuff. And I think COVID and just like, all these people now have like families and like partners and they want to stay at home, which is totally fair. But it is something like I think about personally. It's like what I was just thinking, like, is this what I wanted in my life to be? Like I am at my computer for 5 days a week at home and not even seeing people. Um, it's just something to think about. But I think what Andrea said, like you can still form your own community, and of course, there's also a way. There's also like a form of your creativity without community. But I would absolutely understand the sentiment, because I feel like personally, what I've enjoyed the most out of everything is just working with other people and having them like just like the collaboration. Because I feel like for VFX you have to have a whole team. There's no way you do it yourself. So I think that was one of my favorite parts. It's like I like illustration, but I don't want to be by myself. I want to work with other people. Um, I did also have something else to say, but I don't remember. But yeah, like you can make your own community. I think it's difficult. Like you really have to go out of your way. Like I've seen people make discords. I've seen people like literally like create a party full, if you know what that is, like to like get everyone together to join at like a bar. It's a little bit more like organized than maybe than before, just because so many people work at home. But if that's what it requires, like an organized hangout, then that's what it requires. And personally, I've been like volunteering for Asians in animation, and initially I was helping them because most of them are based in the West Coast. Initially, I was helping them like organize panels like this, like virtual panels for like Pixar, like bringing in like all these studios to chat, which is awesome. But then I really found my purpose at Asians in Animation was to make a New York City community, because there are people in New York City and I want there to be in-person hangouts, in-person connections that you can't get at a virtual panel. And I think there's like it's kind of a missing piece of like these online communities, is like meeting other artists, not just hearing from big studios. It's like that's what I found my purpose to be, and it takes work to like form this community, but I guess that's just what we have to do nowadays. Anyways, sorry.
I'm trying to bring back drinking nights. Not that anybody has to drink at them in New York. We used to do them before pandemic. I really do feel a sense of like, and I think being back here, especially, because I thought about it when I was away from New York for the last couple of years in London, and it was like I could see that the kind of the night group that we used to go out with. There's like a big modeler chat group that I'm part of, which is now animators and whatever. We're adding more people to it, but when I was in London, I had a friend, Gail. I don't know how to say his last name. I'm not going to say it. He started a thing called Creature Drink, and Creature Drink was a thing that we did before pandemic. And when I was there, the last couple of years, like I met up with him, I had a drink, and I was like, look, I know Creature Drink is your thing. I can see tons of people are laid off right now. And I can see them talking about it on LinkedIn every day. I was like, if you're not going to do Creature Drink anymore, I'm going to start doing it. And then the next week he started it up again. And I think we had like maybe 100 something people show up that night. And, everybody's paying for their own drinks and stuff like that. But it just was a really nice way to like in person kind of talk about how like we all were feeling, and then talk to people that did have jobs and meet them in person and be like, oh, you're a model, I can connect you to this person. And for me, and when I have taught and stuff like that, your work is definitely one of the most important things of your job. But like for me growing up, I think because of my dad and what he did, he was a human resources vice president, and like the stuff that he talked to me about was always the people are the only thing that matter. Like, and how you treat them and how you lift each other up when things are bad. Like the whole like coming into a company and not knowing how to do thing, and like it's like being ahead on the ladder and then pulling that person up every time. Like, I learned something, you learn something. I learned something, you learn something. Like, and just so like I'm trying to bring the drinking thing back, but we have like in-person stuff, but like also like the like Discord and like all that stuff. Like there's tons of places. I know we don't have in-person stuff anymore as much, but like if that's something you feel you need, uh, like my thing, I think Taylor would agree with this. Like manifest it. Like it's bring. If you feel like you're needing something you're lacking, then that's probably your purpose telling you, I need this. Why not make it? And then people will come or they won't come. Like whatever. But if you doing it and it doesn't happen, then like all it did was like it just let you fulfill whatever you needed to do, right? Um uh, I know
Yeah.
there's been a question too that no one's answered yet. I was gonna ask it. Uh it was one of the first questions I got asked, and it said, have you guys ever felt intimidated learning something new opposed to what your main focus is? I can jump on that after if somebody else wanted to respond to what I just said. Like, but
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to add something really quickly to what you just said before jumping to the question, because it's definitely super important to have a community to share experience with something with. But because I was looking at the chat and another Andrea commented that purpose and inspiration also go hand in hand. So we can be inspired by the people around us and also by our own experiences, and maybe you have to share with that community something that you went through so they can heal something that they're going through. So that's really like the magic behind everything we do, not just as artists but as also human beings. But like speaking as an artist, like we have such a beautiful tool of creating something that shares a message that is it's really beautiful, and we should use it to like also share that experience or share that inspiration that really helped your life be better. But maybe somebody else needs it too. Like just a quick example. I remember when I was at SCAD, like we had to do a thesis project, and I really didn't know what it was that I wanted to do. It was like a personal thing, but at the time I was going through a very very hard time because my grandfather recently died, and I used that, which was like everything that was going on in my mind, and transformed it into something beautiful. I took that pain and I was able to heal my grief through art in hopes that maybe my process of healing can help the community heal as well, heal something, whatever it is they're going through. Because everyone goes through grieving at some point in their life. So I think that what Andrea said, like purpose and inspiration goes hand in hand. Well, I was inspired by my own pain to share that experience and through art. So like, yeah, having that community too is important, but also knowing what it is that you want to share that can help other people is very, very important as well. So yeah.
Yeah, to jump off that, I think just one thing that Scott said was like we're all like pulling each other up the ladder, and that's definitely how I feel too because it's easy to see other people as competitors. Um and that's like fair because there's so many of us, but like it's just like it will just cause you more pain if you think about it like that. And like I've had so many amazing people like they had no reason, like no they had no benefit to themselves to help me out. And they helped me out either just by like it could be something like getting me a job or just giving me advice. Like so many people have given me advice and I feel like probably everyone here I think that's like what's really beautiful about this industry. Like I would say like one of my favorite parts like doing thesis was like working with my thesis teammates, but also like there was a time where it's like all of us were in the room and we were like helping each other with like difficult things like aces and like the whole pipeline. We were all figuring it out by ourselves basically. We helped each other out. We weren't like don't share that with them because we don't want them to finish. It was like, well, we're all like kind of suffering together, so we might as well help each other out. Like,
Yeah, no one does anything good on the island by themselves. Like it's, I mean, unless it's a really nice island.
I feel like yeah, I mean we've been on this topic of community for a bit, and I was thinking about why everything seems to come in, like when we talk about purpose, we seem to always come back to community. And I think that's because it's like you just said, like you can't find your purpose without interfacing with other people, because really any purpose worth having is one that benefits other people. And so I think what's interesting um, about this time that we're in now is that if it's gotten more complex, like Jeff, for example, our producer, he posed a question to me the other day, which actually kind of um, it was a simple question, but it really made me think, and it really made me kind of be like, oh wow, that's a really good way of thinking about what we do as artists. And what he asked was like, if you could be an artist at any point in history, like what time period would you want to be an artist in? And it's like when you go back 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, 400 years, like it gets simpler, but it also gets harder because it's not as easy to interface with as many people as we can now. Like we can go on to YouTube or whatever and reach a bigger audience, or we can organize these creature drinks like you said, Scott, to where we have these big gatherings and we can communicate with people. And um that has a complexity to it that makes it feel like, oh, I gotta really figure out um like competition and who I'm working against and who's taking potentially taking a spot that I could have at a company, kind of thing, versus really simplifying it to like what is my what can I do as an artist that can benefit other people, really is kind of what it boils down to. And so yeah, this we keep coming back to community. I feel like that's why, is because we all want to we all want to in some way, shape, or form support others.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes like every job we're on has like it's a team of people, right? Like if you're in your corner suffering on your own, like on a team of people, then you're not being part of the team. Like that doesn't benefit you or anyone. I don't know.
yeah. Oh, I
Uh,
also just
bad.
wanted to. Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry. Oh, I just wanted to. I also wanted to like go back to one thing, which is like, I think Scott, you said like, not everyone will show up, but at least you tried. Basically, something like that. Like, I feel like, um, it is like sad to think about what the community used to be, but there's nothing we can do about it. That's just how COVID has made it. So like, it's gonna take a lot more effort, and it may not be perfect, but like, we can just do the best we can. Like, one thing was like when I was at Frame Store, um, I wasn't really sure how to, like I kind of forced myself to reach out to the other artists and just introduce myself, have like a meeting. And then when I was talking with one of the animators, he was like, oh, like, feel free to just say like good morning to your coworkers over chat and like ask them how they are and stuff like that. Like it, like that's kind of like weird for probably everyone to like have these like small talk conversations over Slack, because now it's not small talk. Now it's like you're forcing the conversation, as opposed to if you ran into each other at the like water cooler. But that's just like what we have to do. And he was like, they'll probably appreciate it that someone reached out and asked, like, to have like that connection. So it may feel a little weird. Like, I also reach out to people over LinkedIn to get to know them, or like to keep up a connection and be like, how are you? Like, what, it's been a while since we talked. Like, it's not like ideal. Like, I wish it could be like, oh, I ran into you at the studio and we could just have a chat. But that's the best, like, working with what we have, that's the best I can do for right now. And I'm still really happy to like hear about what people are up to, and like to just have like a small like how are you chat. So just doing the best we can to continue like our connections and have a community with what we have.
Yeah. It's the magic of the little things, that good morning that we offer. So, mm,
I have a
I
question for
jump into
Taylor.
where's the bottle at?
I have a quick question for Taylor because Taylor's Taylor's bounced around and lived a couple lives outside of VFX. So I'm curious to get your perspective on how your purpose can shift, right? Like how your purpose isn't necessarily this one thing that you got to figure out, and you figured it out, and then that's it. You know, how can you kind of relieve yourself from the burden of feeling like you got to figure out this one thing, um, and and come from the perspective of like, you know, what excites me right now, and what drives me right now, and being willing to also check in with yourself to see if that's changed over time and pivot to something new.
Yeah, it's a good point. Great question. Someone just started their engine. I don't know if you can hear it. You guys hear like a roaring engine in the background, or are we good?
You're good.
All right, cool. Yeah, I think, the, I mean, the short and simple answer is just being fully present, um, and kind of any of the opportunities, because, I don't know, I originally went to school for music. Uh, they've transferred me out because they realized I couldn't read sheet music, and then so I went to art, and then that went to animation, and all these kind of goals kept changing. But like in the moment, like day to day, I was always just focusing on like just simply like what I want to do, or what, even if I don't know, like just what sparks joy. I mean, I forget the name of the Netflix, the lady who sorts her, she's like an organizer, and it's like,
Yeah,
it's like
you're talking about.
does this spark joy? And if it doesn't spark joy, you just toss it. And if it does, you hold on to it. And you may not know what you have to do with it in the moment, but like, you know, I've got a, I love Pokemon. I've got a huge Pokemon card collection. And every once in a while, I think about selling some cards. And I sit down and I open the binder. And then literally the moment my hand touches it, I'm like, I can't sell this, right? And then there's been other ones where I'm like, yeah, this, I don't really care about this. And I could sell this. And so it's like that voice, like listening to that voice and following it, because every time you follow it, because if I was like, like this card, whatever, like I don't want to sell it, but I guess I could for like $20 or whatever. And then you do it, and then it doesn't feel good because it didn't feel good to do it in the first place. Or even if it's like for $200, which I've sold the cards like $500, and then I regret it. Um, you know, uh, because it was actually, it's like betrayal. It's a self betrayal. And so day to day, if I'm like not on an animation job, when I was especially in Chicago, when I moved there, I came from New York. I felt like I was like friends with like all like the big ballers of New York animation. I was like, this is great. These are people I looked up to. I went to Chicago, totally different scene. Nobody really cared about anything on my resume, and I had to start totally from scratch. I knew nobody, and I was like, damn, okay. Nobody was hiring me, and so I was like, I can do stuff. I was like, I'm gonna write a short. I'm gonna write a live action short, even though I'm an animator guy, and I'm gonna shoot it and direct it and do the post, and I did it. And then that led to making friends with the actors, and then brought me in to shoot pro wrestling. And I loved pro wrestling. It didn't really pay much, actually anything, to be frank, but it sounded like a great idea. And I was like, what else was I going to do, right? So like, I'm still looking for work, but like hearing that voice where it's like, hey, you want me to introduce you to Tony? He needs a video guy. I'd be like, yeah, okay. And so then doing that, and then come to find out, then I ended up working with this guy named Nick, and then he was like, "Oh, I'm starting a podcast for the biggest wrestling site in the world. I'm going to try to get them to pay you to shoot video at WrestleMania." I'm like, "Great, let's do it." And then you end up doing it, and then next thing you know, you're doing all this other stuff by just following like that spark feeling. And so when I've been outside of VFX, I was even doing acting, and then that led to background work, and then that was like they're like, hey, we need someone to like do a stand-in. Like, you want to try? I'm like, sure, right? And then I just say yes to everything. But the asterisk, is I say yes to everything that makes me feel something. I don't just say yes to everything out of desperation. I say, yeah, even if I am desperate, even if I am scraping the bottom and counting my last penny and freaking out because the industry's on fire, I'm outside and I'm saying yes to the things like this, where I get to spend 2 hours chatting with people who I resonate with, and this is a good use of my spirit and my time. And I don't know, I know I went on a tangent there, but that's it. Does that make sense?
Dude, the yes thing I was completely thinking about when you said it, because like when like I've thought about like a lot of like where my career's gone, and like I've done 3D printing, I've done games, I worked for like Microsoft R&D team for a little bit. Like it's always been somebody has hit me up and I'm like, it's something I haven't done yet. And I'm like, that sounds fun. Or it sounds interesting me new enough that like, I'm just like, and I feel like most of the decisions and most of the jobs and stuff that I've taken in my career have just been on like, I liked the people at the company, or it was a new company, or they had something that I had never done. And I was like, can I do the thing they're asking me to do? And and will it be fun learning it? And and it's always been kind of like the say yes thing that you're on. Like it never consciously feels like you're like manifesting these things and making them happen, but like they just kind of happen. And like if there doesn't feel like there's an impediment in front of you towards it, then like it just feels like a natural thing that happened. Like I don't know if like that's kind of what you were making me think of when you were talking about that.
Yeah, and then just to button it up, I mean, I think that feeling is the thread of our purpose, right? So like, I like the things that I'm gonna be like, oh, I can't say no to this. I have to do it. It's gonna be different than what Jamil feels. It's gonna be different than what Andrea feels. It's gonna be different than Scott feels. It's gonna be different than Caitlin feels. Like, so like if we all honor that and follow that, like that's how everything becomes, the best it can be. Like if on a football team, if everybody feels like they need to be the quarterback, like the team doesn't do anything, right? So like you have to, if and the people who played football because their father played football and their grandfather always wanted to go to that university, and they end up on the team because they paid off the dean, right? And they're still in the same spot. That person is always going to lose to the person who's there because they feel it and they can't shake it. And like that's how, no matter how much on fire the industry is, no matter how much like competition there is because there's other people and we're underbidding each other and it's madness, the people who are still here doing it because they have to, like in their heart, like you will always find a spot somewhere. You might be designing for the local pizza shop because their social media account sucks, and you're like, hey, I can do that for $500. I'll do that. Right? You'll find opportunities because you love the craft, and like failure isn't even an option because like you can't help but breathe it. Versus someone who's like, well, I went to art school and my parents are on me because I'm 200 grand in the hole, and like I have to do a job that's like that person is always going to struggle because they're doing it for the wrong reason.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you just have to be true to the truth that speaks to your soul, which looks different to like everyone depending on their craft. And I think I don't know why that reminds me of the introduction that Caitlin did like on LinkedIn, which like really spoke to me, and I just want to like bring it up really quickly. How she said that it goes hand in hand with like your principles and priorities, like the purpose, but at the same time it needs to be like disconnected from like any superficial success or even your self-worth, because like I myself for a time define my self-worth based on what I did and like the purpose I had, but in reality it's like the other way around. Because of what's inside me, because of my self-worth, I'm capable of doing the purpose. It's not the purpose that gives me reason, it's what is within me that I am capable to live that purpose like successfully, or the truest way possible. So if you're not true to yourself, it's gonna be really, really hard for you to like really succeed and really live that purpose truly, because there's no other life like yours. So we need a world that has you in it, because there's no one else like you. So share that light that you feel within you, because the world needs it. So don't shy away just because the world is different from you. Maybe we need that difference from you to like share that light that you have within you. So yeah.
Yeah, there really is no other way to get confirmation other than, like what Taylor mentioned, is just what sparks that excitement in you. I think that's what I think that's what trips people up is, sometimes it almost feels, maybe most times it probably feels like the ridiculous thing to do. But it's like it excites you, and it's it might go against the grain or it might feel uncomfortable, but um that's the only way you're going to get that answer. You can't ask someone to help you find your purpose. You got to just kind of live, and you have to do it with others. You have to communicate with others. You have to interface with others. You have to hear their experiences, hear them tell you about how they found their purpose to inspire you to do it your way. And like Scott said, you can't do it on an island. So yeah, that's a great point, Andrea. Scott, what was the question that you wanted to circle back to? It was a question about, because that's the other thing too, being specific to this industry. And Mike's muted, Scott.
Oh,
It's like
it
being
was, I
specific
can't
to this
remember who asked it
industry
now, but
because
it was, have you guys ever felt intimidated learning something new opposed to what your main focus is? Um, I mean, that's relatable to this conversation. I like it for me, it was like after going freelance from when I first started the industry, I found after 14 years of being freelance, I felt like when I came to the mill, I never thought I was going to be full time again. And, uh, they had a team of 7 people that I was going to be part of. And it was really about like, I felt like I had learned like a ton on my own over those years, but I always felt like because I was a freelancer, I was never really doing the work that the staff people were doing. And like I was always getting parts of it or things that I didn't really feel like were like the meat of it or whatever. And like the idea of going on a team and helping build the tools and like that environment of like sharing, like like I found the edge float tool that I've never used. Like I literally learned about this last week. This isn't, but like it's like that thing. Like when I find these like things in the program that like I do it a certain way that does the same thing, but like I've never used that thing for whatever reason. And like I've always been that guy on whatever job that I've been on. And like I just learned this thing and I don't care how stupid it makes me look to share it, but I'm gonna share it with you. Like because I'm excited about it and it made my day better. Like uh I think it's weird up, but like I think in an environment of like in chats and in other things, like I've never had that. I don't know if it's I guess it's boundaries, which I have boundaries, but like it's always been like if I have a question and I want to ask somebody that question, regardless of where they are in the industry or where they are, like I don't care about sounding stupid asking that question to them. Like it's to me, it's more stupid that I don't answer. I'd rather look not knowledgeable about something and get the answer or not get the answer than like stand alone and try to bash my head against the wall trying to learn something. Um, uh, that's my answer to that, I guess. I don't know if everybody else has answers to that.
Yeah, it's definitely something I got more comfortable with the longer I've been at it. And you started to sum it up really nicely there at the end, Scott, of like, it's like, especially if someone's like struggling with it, I think it can be hard, even though like to hear like, don't be afraid to ask. Because like when I was afraid to ask, like if I heard that, I'd be like, but I can't, or like no, like I don't know, like worried about judgment and all that stuff. And like it's only after like you've been enough places and done enough things that, at least for me, it became clear that like very few people know what the fuck they're doing, if at all. And a lot of folks. Here's the thing, though, especially when you ask for help, there are still, I'm sure when I say this, you're all going to picture your own versions of these people. But there are plenty of people who are still probably employed, who don't know what the fuck they're doing, genuinely. And have either got in through buddies or got in, whatever, no shade. But I moved out to Atlanta from LA and New York, I've fucking been everywhere. And there are people here who are like kind of at the top in different levels, because before this was such a huge shooting hub, like 15 years ago, they had a small little shop, and they were doing like little like sub shop down the street commercials. And then like Disney came to town and they built like, Trilith, and like the city boomed, and these places already had shops. So now like they kind of just like boomed and brought on staff, and now they're kind of like bigger places. But like in LA, they couldn't go there and get a job doing what they're doing. They just kind of locked into it, and they haven't messed it up enough to get fired. And so a lot of folks don't ask, and a lot of people don't ruffle feathers, like when they're like nervous, and they're just gonna like cling on. But like people can see, like I can see it. It's spotted a mile away. But like those people don't know what the hell they're doing, and they're not asking anybody. And they're kind of stuck, which is, like they couldn't switch markets, they couldn't survive a crash and get the same job tomorrow. And so like the resilience and the flexibility and the adaptability comes from being able to be like, listen, everybody here started from some spot, or I've been to places where like someone's been there they've been in the industry for 20 years and they've worked at that one shop for 20 years. And then there's folks like me. On my LinkedIn alone, there's like 36 different employers, plus all the small places I haven't even listed. And like, it's one thing to do it if you're like at ILM using their proprietary tools and you've got their pipeline and you can do it. Like that's one thing. Then you go to like a small little scrappy shop and you still have to pull it off as a vendor. Can your skills transfer? Your skills probably can, but like if the tools are different, how do you get the same shit done? And so that's you're going to be willing to adapt, think outside the box, ask folks. Every job is different. Every shot can be different. Every vendor is different. The way I do a node graph and nuke is going to be different than someone else, and blah, blah, blah. And so once you like realize that everything's kind of always a variable, it gets a lot easier to either ask or just know that, even if you're still scared, like knowing that maybe everybody doesn't have it together as well as they seem. And just, being willing to, the one thing I had at the start and I forgot it, for myself, especially now when I'm taking bookings, so I get booked for 2 days at a time or a week at a time. I'm all about transparent expectations up front. And so I took a job remotely in London last year. They said they needed a new compositor, which at the time nobody was working. And they're like, we can't find any new compositors. Would you like to work with us? I was like, yeah. I'm like, I don't know how you haven't found anybody. We're all dying, but sure, I'll be the person you choose. And they were like, we need to put together this Lexus car configurator where you choose the car and blah, 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 and see 10,000 different angles and all that shit. And I was like, great. It sounds like, though, you need like someone who's like a TD or someone who can manage all these deliverables and be able to like come up with a script to run through all these like CG assets, because it's not just it's an A over B comp and that's it. Like you need to deliver like 10,000 things that are named properly with the correct metadata. And they're like, yeah. I was like, okay, so I've never done that. I am a new compositor and all these other things. I'm telling you right now, not to talk myself out of a job, but I can't do this. If you hire me, I'll figure it out, because that's what I do, and I've just figured stuff out as I go. But I just want you to know, I don't know how to do it. And they're like, all right, I appreciate your honesty. And then a week later, they're like, you've got the job. I was like, okay. And so I figured it out. We did it. We delivered it. If you go to Lexus.com and you configure a Lexus GX car, I put together all that stuff for the white studio interior and exteriors. Like being honest, which also earlier in our careers or when we're more in fright, it's a lot harder to be. But if you can be transparent and be like, oh, I've done this, but I haven't done that, but like I'll figure it out. Like people resonate so hard with that instead of being like, I'm just not going to say shit, or like just kind of, and then you're in the door, and then they expect it of you, and then you're nervous to ask, right? So like, if you can set those expectations up front, I want to know deadlines, turnaround times, when's the client review it, like, like I ask all that even just when I'm getting on like a comp job now, so I can know it's a 2-day job, Thursday and Friday, but like, is it due Monday, and do I maybe also have to work the weekend even though you're not telling me? And they're like, oh yeah, and then like, so just being comfortable enough to ask those questions, being experienced enough to know the questions to ask, and being confident enough to be able to articulate it in such a way that it also shows them that you know what the hell you're talking about, instead of being like, because then when I even ask it, they're like, oh, this guy's, yeah, we don't know what the hell's going on because we're like 5 producers and we're all copying and pasting emails, but this guy seems to know what the hell a depth mat is, and yeah, okay, sure, we'll give him the job. And I think someone in the beginning, or maybe one of the clips in your edit, Jamil, was talking about communication, and that is such a huge thing to have longevity, is communicating with clients, your peers, your family about the ridiculous turnarounds. And I'm on a rant. I'm going to pause, but great stuff.
No, I 100%, because I think what I was hoping that we would get into is like how specifically it does tie into what we do, like purpose, because um I think that especially the longer you're in the industry and the more you've dealt with tough deliverables and annoying notes and this that and long hours and deadlines, like the more kind of like quote unquote over it you can get, right? But I think still at the core of it, when you can remember that there's a ton of people out there who can't do what we do, who want to be able to showcase their products beautifully to whoever it is that they want to showcase it to. Sometimes maybe it is a beautiful product, or maybe it's just cereal or whatever the case may be. It's still something that so many people can't do. They can't visually represent something as beautifully as the artists in this industry can. And so when you say like, okay, I'm in a position to really help this company or this group of people or this producer who's just doing their job, right, to make this happen, to hit this deadline, um, so that we can get stuff out the door. And I may be the one that asks the tough questions, and I'm the one that's figuring out the nuts and bolts of the situation and all that stuff, like you mentioned, Taylor. It's like that can really be a driving force for a lot of people in this industry when you really kind of take a step back and remember that our skill set is so specific, and it takes being in this industry for years and years and years to be able to even have it in the first place. And so thinking about how that translates to anything else can be kind of frustrating when that work starts to dwindle, but at the same time it's like that mentality doesn't go anywhere. That purpose of like of thinking about how I can support people and bringing out XYZ vision is something that I think is honestly is profound around the artists in this industry.
Can I jump in about that question again?
Sure.
Yeah, they were just talking about being intimidated, learning something new as opposed to their focus. And I just wanted to, yeah, I guess like just share some thoughts. So I feel like we said before, don't think about the people you're competing with, but also I feel like it's totally fair. And I think the only thing I can like offer is that like you just really have to focus on like the 1% improvement. Is my connection okay, by the way? Or am I cutting it out? Okay.
You good?
Yeah, so like for example, I forced myself to learn Unreal for the Lightwork project I did. Um, and it's obviously very intimidating. So really all I could do was just like, if you can just break it down into like the smallest tasks possible. It was like first I have to download Unreal, I have to learn how to use it, I have to learn the shortcuts, then I can learn how to bring MetaHuman, then I can learn, like every like little step. you can only break it down into the smallest thing. And like I started with like a small simple project. Well, it turned out to be bigger. But like the idea was that like I wanted it to be like previs, so there's no pressure for it to look amazing or for it to be a polished animation. Like you should really try to bigger. Um and like for me personally, I think every person is different. So some people it's like they don't even think about the process. Like they're happy or they don't think about like I just know a lot of people who it's like it's very easy for them to work every day, to not focus about perfection and not think about the end product. Like they're happy to just work a little bit every day. Personally, like, you know, I've always struggled with like perfectionism and anxiety and stuff. So I feel like um it's really hard for me to do like to learn new things or to work on a personal project, like honestly, compared to like some other artists who just like comes so naturally to them. So like I have to like put myself into situations where I'm forced to do stuff. For example, I said yes to Jamil's project because I was like, now I have to do this. I've committed to it, so I can't not do it. Or for example, I was talking about the mentorship in the chat. Like to be honest, like it was a bit intimidating. Like I met with and they were like, we can do a mentorship. And you know, at first I'm like a little nervous. Like it's I again like I have a lot of anxiety. I was like, I don't know. I just said yes though, and then like it was good. It was like amazing mentorship. And then I applied for like a generalist internship at Hornet and I was not a generalist. Like I'm an animator. Like I can do other stuff, but I am not a generalist. But like at the time I was like I feel like I need to push myself because I'm not getting a lot of work. And I was like super nervous. And when they responded saying that I got the internship, I literally thought they sent it to the wrong person maybe. And I thought that like I literally was like waiting for an hour being like they're going to be like sorry, wrong person. Um and like every day I was pretty anxious and scared because I was doing stuff I hadn't done in a couple years and like doing modeling, shading, like this is all I mean I it's like I know a little bit, but it's very much more detailed than before. So um but I like had to do it because I said yes to the internship. So for me personally, like I have to force myself to do stuff because that's just who I am. And it also helps, of course, like we said, if you have other people who are in your position. So finding other people who are, you know, also learning is good too. Sorry, I don't know. That's too much. I said too much, but I feel like it's completely fair to be intimidated, but you can just push through. Push. The only way out is through.
I love that. I love that. What do you guys think? We still have the option to call in if anybody would like to come up, ask a question, or kind of give some thoughts or anything. Have a few minutes for that. Otherwise, just want to respect our panelists' time. I know we're coming up on about an hour and a half, and we could honestly probably go for another hour and a half, I'm sure, depending on what we branched off into. But if anyone would like to call in some time for that, maybe we can give another 5 minutes or so to leave some space for that. But um, yeah, I've been loving this conversation so far.
I know that somebody touched on imposter syndrome a little bit, and like I feel like I suffer from that like crazy. I feel like most of the people I know suffer from that, at least in some way. And like one thing that I've kind of thought on a lot in the last couple of years when I've had that feeling, it's always been uh, at a time of change. Like I'm either at a new company, I'm learning something new, or like I'm doing something like we've said that like I'm not sure I can do, but I like in my heart I know I can do it. But like it's always that like I feel like imposter syndrome is always at the same level as like finding the purpose as you go. Like it's like they both kind of run hand in hand to me, at least. Like it sucks to have that feeling, but like whenever I start to feel it, I'm like, I'm kind of like, I'm meant to be here. They wouldn't have asked me to work at this place if I wasn't meant to be here. Like, and like, it's like your brain searching for that dopamine of saying you're not ready or you're not good enough to do this. Like, and, but everything else points to you are. They've hired you for that. Shut up in your head and do it. Like, it's, I don't know, that's kind of, when I start to go down that path, I try to remind myself that, like, I'm here because, like, uh,
You gotta. I mean, you're telling it to yourself too. Also, it's like never in the history of imposter syndrome have you like verbalized that to someone else to like go to whoever hired you and be like, I'm here because
y'all sure?
like you hired me. You know what I mean? It's like you're you're having that conversation with yourself, and that just kind of applies to everything, you know. And I don't know. I mean, I've never been in any other industry. This is all I've ever done, so I don't I don't know what other professions require the amount of like learning and pivoting and new skills and stuff that this industry requires. I can't imagine there are too many that require as many as this one does from its artists. And so it's like, yeah, there's an abundance of opportunities for imposter syndrome, you know, especially like you said, Scott, when you're freelancing, you know, and you go to a new place, which could be every other month, right? It's like it
Yeah, and
doesn't
you got to
matter how
figure
long
out
you've been doing it. It's
you got to figure out the
yeah,
dynamics of the team. You got to figure out like, can I say this thing to this person? Can I like, or who do I ask this? If I ask this person this, like, is that the right person to ask? Like, uh, but, yeah,
Right, it can be very scary. It's like being the freshman in the company.
yeah. I mean, I say in those situations, just be yourself and like, just like it's everybody feels that way. So it's like when you get in the new day and whatever, like I just try to make as many jokes as I possibly can about like being like sorry, because like I mean, everyone's first day at every job. It's like you're just sitting there going like the server doesn't work, you can't get your login to work, like you can't do. So like when I'm doing that, I just try to reach out to people and say like like hey, I'm not doing this on this job, or like I'll send people music, or I'll like ask them about a movie, or like just to uh, like break that and break in a new place and like not feel um feel that water cooler kind of feeling, but from home, I guess.
I'm out here on my phone like a maniac, and my battery's about to die. So if I could just hop in with some final breaths of my final words, ripping on what Scott's saying is, especially because I don't know, we like do things, we like make things, and we make visual things, and we do things, and we can see. There'll be a job on LinkedIn that's like, hey, hiring a new composer. Like, and you refresh the page and there's like 3,000 replies. And I jumped on one of those. Actually, I've had pretty good luck with a few of those. Where like, I'll just say, hey, and you guys can copy, you can steal what I write. But I always say, like, hey, if you get through this after the first 2,000, happy to, whatever. I put my little magic spin on it. And sometimes I still just end up hearing from those people and getting those jobs. And because when we're like lost and scared, it can be like, I'm a blank, and there's a million blanks like me. And there's so much more to like hiring folks, working with folks, choosing to collaborate with folks than just like the tools in your toolbox, like the physical tools. When I was like running a department and I was hiring folks, you look for things like who responds in a timely manner, who can conduct themselves professionally, who can I bring on this client call with me, who like I'm just wrapping up this cool illustration project with someone who's a big somebody, and I worked with them like 15 years ago, and hadn't worked with them much since. Got a random email from them like a month ago, and they're like, "Hey, I don't even know if this is still your email, but I'm doing this TV pitch, and I want to know if you want to do the illustration for it." Meanwhile, like I haven't done illustrations in 15 years. And this person could have reached out to anybody, and they chose me, and they did because we kind of have a shorthand. And when we did work together, I was really good at like kind of reading their mind, and they could say X, Y, Z, and I could fill in the gaps and kind of just, we just vibed. And like at the end of the day, for this project, that's more important than if I draw the prettiest pictures. And also, even if I draw the prettiest pictures the fastest, even though obviously we're under a deadline and I have to do revisions and all that baloney, but like for that job, how you vibe with the person is more important. And so even when I felt imposter syndrome, like when I got that email and they're like, hey, we're going to pay you this much money to make this TV thing, I'm like, this sounds unreal. And they should not hire me because I don't. My wife was even like, do you draw? Because she hadn't seen me draw in like 8 years. And I was like, I think I can. And so I tried. But I felt, for like weeks, I'm like filling a sketchbook trying to figure out how to freaking draw again. I was like, they should have hired someone else. I shouldn't be like, what the hell am I doing? Blah, blah, blah. But like, because there's something else that's more important, or there's another part to the job that matters, or like they just like talking with me, or like getting on the Zooms, like. And so when you get in those spots, even if you can't see it, for anyone, if this vibes with anybody, it's like know that even if you can't see it, someone else sees a reason that you should be at that table, and just trust that. Because also if you're involved with these people, if they're in your life, if their opinion matters to you at all, or you get a good vibe from them, you have to honor that they get a good vibe from you, and they also wouldn't set you up to fail, or like people aren't out to get you. And so all the various odd jobs I've done where I've ended up doing weird things, it's because for whatever reason I was just in that spot, like we said in the beginning, and the spark and the following your thread and purpose. You have to just trust that and not be like, well, never mind, I'm the wrong guy, and these drawings sucked, and I can't do it. And because, at the end of the day, I just gave them the last drawing this morning, and everything's good, everyone's stoked, and it turns out I can draw. So with that, I'll probably listen for one more minute, and then I'll be at 1% battery. But this was really awesome. Thank you so much for organizing this, Jamil, and it was really good to meet everybody. Thanks for hanging out in the chat, too, everyone that actually showed up. It's awesome.
Sure. 100%. Yeah, just like what Taylor dove into, like you can branch off into a million different directions off of this topic alone. Even just looking at the comments, right? The economics, how the economics can affect. Joseph just put in the stream, like I don't know. I think that we could branch off and do another version of this conversation, another version of this conversation, another version of this conversation. But at some point in time, we have to kind of round it out. And I feel like if anyone else has like some additional closing thoughts, like Taylor did, Scott, Andrea, Caitlin, on kind of what we touched on today, what everybody kind of participated in the chat as well. What are you guys thinking for kind of wrapping it out? See you, Taylor.
I think that like the most important thing within purpose is with whatever conversation we went through, it always comes down to, as cliche as it sounds, to listen to your heart. Because again, the voice is different within everyone, and just be true to you and be brave enough to also follow that voice. That's a big challenge. We all go through it, and I think that's also the secret in life in general. So
You're muted.
God, you're muted.
I like following on that. Like, I think, like for me, don't look at purpose as absolutes. Like where I'm at in my career, where I thought I would be, are not the same thing. And like, I think I found the joy and like the passion and everything I wanted from it, regardless of it being the perfect image I had in my mind of what I thought it was going to be. Like I honestly feel more enriched on where it did come, because I had no idea like it would take this path. And like, I think that for me is just like, have a plan, have an idea. And it's like me and my girlfriend go on traveling all the, like when we travel, she's very plan based. And I'm like, I just want to know what city we're going to. and like I'll kind of slightly like maybe just like Google the city and just look at the page, and then I'll close it, and like and then just like it's getting there, and then like, talking to the locals, like going to your first restaurant and asking the waiter, and like, but it's like that same thing with like everything is just that I had a tangent that I was going to, but like, um, I can't remember what it was. But yeah,
It's like
it's
that.
yeah. Uh,
It
Yeah,
just be
it's like
flexible.
that. Yeah, exactly. It's be flexible. It's like driving from Texas to LA and getting to Arizona and then being like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm in Arizona."
yeah, but what
Like
there's
it
probably a
just
ton of cool shit there. Like,
yeah,
and
exactly.
like
That
instead
you
of being
gotta go
upset
through
you're
it.
there and don't know what's going on, like be excited about it, and yeah, that's kind of yeah, like find find purpose in the unknown part of it, and just like have fun. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
totally
I love it.
agree with that. Like, sorry to just jump in. I feel like purpose, I feel like again, it's like kind of a big word, but for me it's like what matters to you, like what are your priorities, and like for example, I feel like traveling is a great thing, or like roommates or partners, like in every single thing it's like you have to think about what matters to you. So like recently I also went on a trip with some friends and my partner, and it was like for us it was like what matters to us, like like I think it matters to us to know a bit about the city so that we know what we shouldn't miss, but then also like it matters to us to be able to like walk around a street and just find our food there. Like like spontaneously. And I think the idea of being open and flexible is just, I mean, I think that's again like it's a like a life principle thing. So I feel like your purpose and like what matters to you should be tied to your principles, because probably for me one of my life principles is just being open minded and like living in the gray area. The more you live like very narrow minded or like just narrow ideals, I feel like the more pain you'll have probably, because it's hard to like fit your life into that, because life is so, there's so many other factors. So like I feel like a lot of people would ask like what is your dream studio, and I would always be like that's just like I don't have like a dream studio, because I feel like that puts way too much pressure on the studio and on me. I have to get there. The studio has to achieve my ideal. And to be honest, like, what everyone would say is like every studio has its own politics. It's like, and I might, like, I like what I'm doing right now. Like, it's not like when I say I'm an animator, people are like, oh, have you worked at Pixar or something? It's not like what the people think of, but that's not what it's about for me. It's like about the day-to-day. So like being open-minded can be just really helpful with being open-minded to finding what your purpose can be, and then being open-minded just in general just help you
being with it wherever it's at, along the process of finding it, and being okay with being in the process of finding it, like Scott said, it's about the journey. I think that's a great place to wrap up this conversation about you guys. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the hell out of you guys. I think that everybody in chat, you guys' comments were awesome. Like, I mean, and I'm reading through it now, and like I said, we can dive into a bunch of different avenues of this. We can definitely do something like this again sometime where we spin off. We'll probably be following up, figuring out what you guys think, and what kind of conversations you want to see in the future, if any. But for now, I think have a great weekend. Have a great week ahead, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Maybe next time, someone said part 2, like encore. I don't know. Yeah, fun. And we could have people join in the call, because there's a lot of great stuff in the chat.
Such a big topic. Definitely need a part 2. All right. Thank you.
See you guys.
Later.